Hello there. Today we're going to work on this Commodore PET 4032, and we're actually going to do a repair that I've had to do many times already, but thankfully this time it's not because it's just continuing to fail, because this is actually not my Commodore PET. I'm doing a repair for someone else. No, I still don't do commissioned repairs, so I'm just going to put that out there. But I'm doing a repair for someone I know, and they have the same problem that every single one of these things has. The keys on the keyboard don't work, and it's almost certainly the carbon pads in it that just don't conduct as well anymore. The pads might be dirty, but generally they just kind of wear out and then it stops conducting. Now, in the past, I've used a method where I take a pencil and make a little graphite dust pad by drawing in a circle over and over again, and then I will rub the keypads onto that to get the graphite to transfer over to the rubber contact. And that's worked out pretty well. But the owner of this computer didn't want to try that method on their machine, which is fine, mine's a little hacky, but instead they wanted to try this product called Keypad-Fix. Now, this is a product that goes onto the keypad as a paste and then dries. It's specifically designed to repair this exact kind of issue. And I thought it would be interesting to take a look at how well this works. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be a multi-day project because it claims that it has to dry overnight. So today's main focus is going to be getting this thing torn down, getting to the keyboard, and then seeing what it's like to apply this stuff to it. And then after it dries, I'll come back and do a little bit more recording with it to see if it worked. So let's go ahead and start tearing this thing down so that we can apply this and see how it works. Now, before we start, let's take a look at what this actually is. So the product name is Keypad-Fix, and that is what their website is too, keypadfix.com. On their website, on the FAQ that kind of goes over more stuff, I want to see here. Okay, an oil film on the repair surface may cause Keypad-Fix to bead up and not stick to the contact. Wipe that away with an alcohol wipe and reapply. Now, this oil thing might sound a little weird, and I was not sure exactly what they were talking about at first when it comes to that. But when I was reading through their FAQ, they actually have an absolutely fantastic explanation of what they mean. What they're talking about is the plasticizer that allows the malleability of the plastic and the carbon pad to compress is leaching out of the rubber over time, and it forms an oil surface on the top. That's what they mean, which is kind of really cool to hear about from a manufacturer of like anything like that, because acknowledging the plasticizer leaching out is a huge thing that a lot of people don't realize. If you've ever had like a cable that's been touching styrofoam for years and you pull it off of the styrofoam's stuck to it, and then the cable's really hard, that's from the plasticizer leaching out. So you can find examples of this kind of thing all over, and it's just interesting to hear a manufacturer talk about it like that. So before we crack the PET open here, let me go ahead and turn it on, just to validate that it is elsewise working just fine. I am envious of the person who got this not having a cracked bezel to start, but they do have some other issues to fix. Unfortunately, they just can't be in good shape anymore, but it is totally working fine. I'm not going to touch their brightness knob on the back. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. Mine's a nightmare, so I don't want to get involved with that on this. But yeah, we get absolutely nothing out of the keyboard. Now, it's possible I disconnected it already. I don't remember. I know we're going to have difficulty getting this thing open, because if I remember right, the hinge on the back is seized or like bound in such a weird way. The hinge is like the full length of the unit and interleaved like that, and I think it might be bent out or something, so it's kind of like locked in place. So we're probably going to have to take the screws out of the hinge on the back on this. Normally you only have to do 2 screws in the front, and then it just opens like a hood, but we'll see. I don't fully remember, but anyway, yeah, absolutely nothing out of the keyboard. But again, I may have disconnected it, but it's not working. You just gotta trust me. It doesn't work. But the machine itself does, so it's worth continuing from here. All right. Get the top open, maybe here. Hopefully I'm wrong about the back being bad. Of course, it's a flathead on that side and a Phillips on that side. Okay, does it open? No. The keyboard is connected though, so it just straight up was not working. So what should be possible here is to lift the top up and then pull it back a significant amount and then pull up this like hood strut thing here. But the hinge is binding in the rear, so we're gonna have to detach that, which sucks, because then the top and the bottom parts of the chassis are gonna be loose and free floating, and there's a whole bunch of cables in there. It's just, this is not gonna be fun. I'm not exactly sure how I want to handle this. Maybe I want to put it on its side, actually. I think that might be the way to go. It'll behave a little more predictably then. Bunch of fasteners loose, okay. Yeah, it alternated long, short, long, short, long, short across the back. That is weird, but are we free? We are free, okay. What was wrong with the hinge? Why, it works perfectly, what? All right, I have it open. The hinge, yeah, absolutely moves just fine. So I don't know what would have been causing an issue. I can feel there's a little spot where it just doesn't want to move, so I wonder if maybe I was getting it caught on that, although it should move back. Is it? Perhaps it was just that, or maybe it's slightly rusty along the whole thing. I don't know. What I can do is I can get something here, wipe the whole thing off, and then drop a small amount of 3-in-1 oil down into the hinge and see if that'll help. All right, I'm gonna cycle that. I do feel like that's helped. So I think this is constructed with a long rod that goes through the loops on both sides, so it needs to get wicked with capillary action along the rod. It might help if I put it on its side, actually. All right, we're gonna call that as fixed as I care to try. I'm gonna try and get this reattached because there's no reason. I really don't want this loose because these cables cannot be disconnected without desoldering them, and I don't really want to do that. So let me tuck that kind of right there just so it's managed. Same thing with the keyboard. All right, that top one being on there should help align the rest of them, making this a lot easier. So let's try and get the bottom one in now. All right, that's the last screw in place. I'm gonna guide this shut and then set it upright, and we'll see if we can get it to open and close normally. It just got stuck again. How? Wait a minute. It's catching on the plastic over here. That's what's happening. I can see it's actually been doing that for a very long time. So when I try to open it, it hits that. And you can see that if I get a light in there, the inside edge of this has been like beveled from it being bent. It's almost like Commodore drilled the holes in the wrong spot. But you know, Commodore is perfect. They wouldn't make any mistakes like that. Maybe I'll turn it on its other side. Maybe dropping the weight on it like that'll work. But there's this scrape mark here where it's been rubbing up against this the whole time it's existed. This is bad design. All right, I'm gonna loosen these, try and shimmy it down. All right, well, let's tighten it in this position and see what happens. So that's now working with all the screws attached. So let's try and put it down. So I tightened it with the case shifted that way. So now it works because I had the weight that direction. So we can now pop this up like normal. Bingo. I am gonna do this person a favor and clean this out though. I will Note that you watching this most likely cannot do this. This is a special vacuum cleaner that is electrically grounded all the way to the tip. It does not build up a charge and is therefore safe to use for this kind of task. This is a special ESD safe vacuum made just for this kind of job. That's looking way better. There we go. All right, circuit board's clean. Hinge is hinging. And we can now actually move on to today's topic of removing the keyboard. I am a little curious about how securely this is mounted. I see one loose screw there, because on mine, these screw posts up here are getting a little worn out, although I've repaired mine multiple times because it's had multiple different kinds of failures. I don't think my graphite solution has failed once on it, but I didn't do it the whole time the first time I did it. And then the traces started to fail, which, you know, obviously fixing the pads isn't going to solve the traces. So, yeah, this thing is just a bundle of fun to work on. Drop in the keyboard. Okay, I already see a giant lump of dust and lint right there. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's, man, I mean, it's par for the course. It's gross. All right, with the keyboard out, I'm not going to focus too much on cleaning this right now. We can work on that as the pads are drying, I think. Or, well, probably not, because I probably just need to leave it setting. I want to get to the part where it's drying here quicker, sooner than later. So what we need to do next is remove this tape so that we can desolder these wires that go to the caps lock key. It's really annoying. That's the one key that's soldered, and I don't know why. So maybe they just didn't have the depth, and they can only find this one that's on pins, I guess. But it is very annoying to work on. On my own, I've just left it desoldered. But this one I will probably end up putting back. Let's just get the wires off of there. That way I can pull off the whole keyboard. All right. There is the PCB, and yeah, that thing is super dirty. See, like speckle of powder dust stuff around the pads there. There's the really annoying carbon traces that go over the PCB, and if this thing flexes at all, those can crack. I have a video about bypassing these with copper tape because it's low profile. You don't block this thing. But yeah, that is very clearly dirty. We're gonna have to clean this. Because we don't want any of this dirt getting under our new carbon pads. And looking at the pads themselves, yeah, they're also super dirty. I wouldn't be too surprised if I just cleaned this if a lot of these came back. But we're gonna try the goo, because I know this thing is just gonna be not great overall. But we're gonna clean both of these before we apply that. We're just gonna use some alcohol and wipe this off. Should be pretty simple. I don't want to be too aggressive with it because of those carbon pads. So we're not gonna scrub on this. So yeah, pretty much gonna, yeah, that was gross. Pretty much gonna call that it. Now on this, we need to be a little more directed and careful. So you can understand what I'm talking about with the dirt. So you see all the speckles on there? Yeah, that's on like every single one of these keys. That's just dirt and crud. Like, here, watch this. Let's just pick one. I can wipe all that off. Okay, that's how bad these are. That's not even like prepping the surface, what like we're gonna do. But we need to do that on every single one of these, and we can't just wipe it side to side, because these are in like a rubber thing, and you could totally rip those if you're not careful. So yeah, we need to clean the tops of every one of those. Now, I have previously avoided putting isopropanol on the rubber surfaces like this, but the directions do deliberately say to use it for the plasticizer leaking, which again, I think that's really cool to talk about that. But we're going to go ahead and do that just because I want to follow the directions to a T to prep these things for this product. So we're gonna try this and just see how this goes. I was not expecting such immediate results of removing stuff. Huh. I wonder if that could be the oil they're talking about. I wonder if I've needed to do this on all of mine. Oh my gosh. Okay. I think I'm now a proponent of using isopropanol on these things to clean them. Isopropanol will act as an oxidizer, so it could damage the rubber potentially. It could cause it to harden, but it might be doing more good than harm here, which is a balance when it comes to these kinds of things. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to replace this like every 10 keys. That's insane. Okay. The good news is, I'm gonna get a lot of experience with using these Q-tip things on top of this, because this is what we're gonna use to apply this as well. I think that's all the pads cleaned. Let me look over it. I think I am calling that clean enough. Moment of truth here. So this is the Keypad-Fix product, and we're gonna try and see how this works. I have read the instructions here. Basically, clean the pads like we did, clean the copper side like we did, and then they want you to mix the contents of the jar. Let's get this off and take a look at that. So I do love on their website, they call this a pocket-sized jar, because you know, gonna walk around with the key repair goo in your pocket. One of their recommendations is to open it up and then skim off the surface, because the fluid can separate. Yeah, we can see it's definitely separated in there. And then mix it and then put the surface back on. But we're just going to mix it like this because I do not want to try and get something else involved here. So let me read through the directions here just so it's clear. Clean defective carbon keypad contact and copper switch pad. Okay, so that's the carbon keypad contact, copper switch pad is a PCB. Clean only those contacts that need to be repaired. Now we clean them all because like all of them are bad. Mix contents of jar. So we're going to use this thing to mix that up as best we can. Brush mixed material onto carbon contact with a cotton swab, this thing. Apply a very thin coating, about the thickness of cellophane tape. That's just packing tape. Clean excess material from keypad after application. So we're going to use this. I'm hoping that we can get it on there thin enough. We'll see how that goes. Yeah. And then dries tack-free in 2 hours. Repaired keypad can be returned to service after drying overnight. So yeah, this is gonna suck for me, but we'll see how this goes. So essentially, we have steps 1 done. Now we're on to step 2. So we're gonna mix the contents of the jar. You know what I'm thinking? After we get this mixed up, I'm just gonna pour a little bit into the lid and then I'll dab from that rather than dip it in there, because I feel like we're gonna get way too much. Kind of wish I had like a, you know what? Instead of wasting a swab, I'm gonna take one of my old swabs, crack it in half, we're gonna use that. So here we go. Wow, that is, okay, yeah, breaking that up, good grief. Am I gonna regret having the lumpy bits in there? Is this gonna dissolve back down? Oh, wow, okay. Now I see why they say skim off the top on their website. Oh, it's thick down there. That's lumpy. Huh. Okay, it's gonna take some work to mix up correctly. All right, we're not getting the lumpy stuff sticking to the stirrer now, so I'm gonna call that pretty good. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put the lid back on, shake it, so that I can get the unmixed stuff from here. We can definitely see a noticeable color difference there. So yeah, spent a lot of time mixing this stuff. I can also see it starting to separate just slightly there as it sits. I'm gonna shake it a little bit so that I can use the lid without fear of having it be improperly mixed stuff. Shaking again, and that is my work material. Dip that onto there. So there's my material, and okay. I think this is going to be super manageable. I have no idea to tell the thickness. I'm just going to hope that's enough. Do I want it to have like a solid layer, or do I want to spread it around? I'm not really sure. Thickness of cellophane tape is very thin. Not a particularly descriptive qualifier there. I'm going to go with getting the whole top wet is my goal. So that was not enough material. That has dried and it just looks normal. That's wild. Yeah, I'm just going to go with doing a wet coating here and actually working through the cameras. Proving to make this easier, so I think I'm just going to close up film all of it like this. So, definite recommendation on making sure you have long swabs like this. Absolutely required. Because you need to be able to get your hand over the surface without, or you need to be able to get the fluid to reach where you want without exposing your hand to the surface. So like if you're leaning over with really short cotton swabs, you're gonna put your wrist in this stuff for sure. Unless you're like really paying attention. I think coincidentally having the light at the angle I do here, where I'm getting the reflection, is helping me because it's really easy to see which ones are wet. It says dries tack-free in 2 hours. I think it's going to be way less than 2 hours. That's my first real screw up there. Like I did that one. Look at those. Those are mostly all dry now already. Wow. And last one. Okay. So, yeah, huh. Do feel like some of them may not have got a whole coating. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a second pass. Any of them that don't look even in color, I'm going to apply a little bit more to. All right, I think they're all looking pretty good now, actually. Those look really good. Okay, so there's about how much I used. Really, the cap method for this worked out really well. Highly recommended. And I'm putting the lid back on the jar. You can see how little was used. So yeah, that could do probably another 300 keyboards. For giggles, I'm being asked if the stuff is conductive while I'm working on this live. We probably would have got conductivity on the pads already, but pad 8K-ish. Again, they're not technically dry, but also they're dry. 3K, that's pretty good, actually. I'm quite happy with that. All right, I'm gonna put this off to the side for overnight, I guess, and then, yeah, I could theoretically reassemble it, because the keys have to move a lot to touch the PCB, and then just say, you know, don't touch the keys, but I'm gonna leave it open so it air dries. All right, and now the conclusion here. It has been, what is it, 18 hours now since this was done, though I will admit I did actually put the keyboard back in the machine and tested it about 6 hours after it was all done, because it was drying on camera as we were putting it together. There's no way it wasn't done, which makes me wonder if perhaps I did not put a thick enough coating on there, because the directions, you know, the thickness of cellophane tape is very nebulous. I would prefer to see something more clear, like perhaps apply 2 coats thin if it dries or something really quickly. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But I can say this. It's mostly working well. We can see we missed the L there, but the L does work, and it is functional now. So none of the keys worked before this. Keep that in mind. Not a single one of them. But there are some keys now that are working sporadically. So R here, for example, I think I did get it to work one time here. There we go. There's R. Yeah. It's possible that the coat was uneven on that, although it looked like all of them were very even except for semicolon, which I don't think I've gotten to work once. One that might be a little thick. So, it's hard to say exactly how I would rate this, because it is inconsistent. I think 2 hasn't worked yet either. Yeah, but almost all of the keys have worked. That's the thing, is that it did do a very good job overall rejuvenating it. Now, there's one thing that I kind of wish I had done in retrospect, and that has to do with the PCB. I wish I had used a melamine sponge on the copper pads to try and clean that as best I can, especially after I saw what looked like something that spilled in the keyboard onto the plastic part. I don't know that that happened, but if there was a fluid coating on the PCB at some point, it may have impacted the copper a little more severely. It might have oxidized a layer or something onto it that just the isopropanol would not have removed. So it would have been nice to be able to rule that out. I don't want to take this thing apart right now. But I would say overall, it's doing a lot better. Let's do an every key test here just to see which ones are behaving. I will press each key at most 3 times, increasing in hardness until it gets pressed. And if I miss a key, I'll space over it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys not fully working here, it seems. And I think they may come back after some more regular use. So I genuinely would not be surprised by that. So if we go down here again, just to demonstrate the shift. Oh, the Z key didn't work, that's right. Shift keys are both working here, so those are fine. I think I have seen some of these other keys work that did not work. Perhaps not. So I'm not sure what will need to be done on those keys. If I would be better off taking it apart, reapplying to those, or not. I think I would have to look at their surfaces and then look at the PCB as well and see if that's a problem. There is a grouping over here, the exclamation point Q and Z, that could indicate one of the additive layer traces on the PCB has failed. However, the 2 over here, and especially semicolon, and then the 2 over there, don't really agree with that. So I don't think that it's entirely caused by one of the, I usually call them cheater traces, failing. So overall, it's really hard to say how I feel about this. If it had worked flawlessly, I think it would have been an easy recommendation. I would like clarification on the directions rather than thickness of cellophane tape. I think that is bad, and it makes it unclear how to use this. So I think more experimentation would really be needed to understand how to best use this. And I don't think something like a TV remote is going to be the best way to figure that out. It needs to be a lot more tests like this. The person who has this computer also has a 2001 with the graphics keyboard that needs done. So I may end up experimenting on that at some point because they will want that repaired, and I might try doing smaller sections at a time and then applying like different coats, like maybe on one key I apply one coat, let it dry, then on the next one apply one coat, let it dry, apply another coat, and then see if maybe building up several thin coats of the stuff would work. I don't know, that's my next thought, is that perhaps doing that would work out better for this stuff, but I really don't know. Definitely a lot more experimentation is needed to feel like I understand what's going on with this stuff, because it's pretty weird. So, yeah, with that, I cannot give you an easy instant recommendation or thumbs up, thumbs down. It's very mixed. Okay, so final thoughts on using this stuff to service a keyboard like this. It was easy enough to use. Mixing just required patience and really thinking about it. So I don't think that's too bad. The process of applying it to the keys wasn't bad at all. Again, I highly recommend the longer cotton swabs that I used, and then resting your palm on the edge of the keyboard so you don't accidentally put your hand on top of the keypads. I feel like that would be an easy mistake to make. But in the end, I wish it had worked completely, but percentage-wise, the success rate was very high. In learning more about how to apply the stuff, I could see it working out really well. So this I'm going to put in the maybe category. I don't think I've ever had my graphite key rub solution not work on a key, but this is potentially a better way of doing that, although I'm not really sure exactly what it is. It might just be graphite suspended in like alcohol or something, and you're just wiping the graphite dust on there, and then the alcohol evaporates and leaves it behind. I don't know what's in that, so for all I know, it's just a different way of doing the exact same thing. Well, I'm going to call it there. That was an attempt at using Keypad-Fix to repair a carbon pad keyboard. Again, I'm not saying that it's like the best solution, but it also did clearly work. I think better directions on how to apply it could go a long way. But I hope you all enjoyed this video about testing this. If you did, you may want to subscribe to be notified when I release another one. If you want to help support the channel, you can find me on Patreon. But for now, that's it, and I'll see you next time.